Hey guys, Darren Kelly, Coach of Wireless Pods, and welcome back to another Captain's Head episode heading into round 15. Another fantasy week is upon us, and another interesting week of captains because I feel like this week's not as clear cut as it has been in the past couple of weeks where we've had some pretty massive scores. I think there's a lot of guys in that category that can sort of hover around the 120 to 130 areas, but not too many that have the potential to explore outside of that with some of the confidence we have with them at the moment. So it's going to be a very interesting week. I do think there's going to be a lot of diversity in a lot of people's captains this week, but there are obviously some safe ones which we will explore. But quickly looking at how I performed last week, did come the 89th in the weekly, just with some decent picks again. Cherry with the 93, so always someone that drops out. Besides that, pretty happy with the squad overall. Obviously, very good there. I am now up to 7th overall in the season. So slowly just ticking away. I was 9th last week, so I moved up another 2 spots. Let's see if we can continue to move up this week. We'll see how we go there. But let's get into my number one captain this week, and that is the man Andy Brayshaw I brought in last week. He plays tonight, Thursday night, against Essendon, who are the 4th easiest midfield matchup for midfielders at the moment. He scored a 109 against them last year when they were a little bit tougher. Now he falls into that perfect category where I could see him going anywhere between 100 and 140, just with how he performed. Obviously last week 136. He's obviously come off the bye pretty fresh. There's been a lot of good scores against Essendon in the most recent weeks. You know, Bailey Smith and Max Holmes both went 130 plus against them recently. Matthew Kennedy 113, Hugh McCluggage 152, George Hewitt 125. So, and even Jordan Dawson went 134 as well. So this should be a prime matchup for Andy Brayshaw to go 130. So he looks like a very good VC option tonight, and I think that's where a lot of people will search. I don't see any attention coming his way. I can only see a Setterfield potentially going with someone, but considering he barely even did anything to Bailey Smith last week, I'm very doubtful that actually happens. And if anything, it probably goes to Sarong, who is a little bit more damaging than a Brayshaw at this stage anyway. So if you're not confident that he doesn't avoid the tag, then maybe look elsewhere, but you always have that C fullback anyway. So yeah, Andy Brayshaw is my number one for those reasons and is a very good VC option tonight and probably someone I will be doing tonight. Number 2 is the big Bontempelli. I'm expecting a huge bounce back game from him. He's going to be hungry after a very poor score last week. He's going to repay a lot of those coaches that have brought him in the last couple of weeks, if not last week, and respond after being tagged pretty heavily last week. He's going to respond. So I'm expecting a pretty big game from him against Richmond Tigers, who obviously are the easiest matchup for majority of positioned at this stage. So yeah, expecting him to just go ballistic, whether that's forward, whether that's in the midfield. He's going to either kick a bag or he's going to have 25, 30 plus disposals. So yeah, expecting him to respond. He scored a 20 or 126 against them last year. So he is a very viable option who I expect to be in that mark as well. So does play the last game of the round, so you are relying on him as your C option. So definitely one that you're going to have confidence with at the moment, which I can understand why not many people would at this stage, just given how poor he's been performing since the bye, realistically. But yeah, you got to back in the Bont. He's a great player, top 5 in the competition. Just has been down the last 2 weeks, particularly due to different reasons. So he is my number 2. We obviously know how well the matchup is. We've seen some massive scores against them throughout the entire season, so no real need to read them out. Number 3 is the most consistent man and the most expensive man in the competition, and that is Bailey Smith. He's down a few spots this week just due to the Brisbane matchup, who are, I believe, the 4th or 5th toughest matchup for midfielders specifically so far in the last 10 games. So while I don't think it affects him too much, it is at home, so I think that also bumps him up slightly. He already had a 112 against them earlier this year with 11 tackles, and that was at the Gabba. I do think he improves just slightly off that at home at GMHBA, so I think a 120, if not a 130 is on the cards for him, as we know how good he is. I do expect him to cop a bit of attention from a Dunkley, just sort of as a like for like matchup with him, so that potentially limits him. But the thing with Bailey Smith, he doesn't care how he disposes of it. He just is happy to kick it off the ground, and he's happy to tackle at the same time. So he will get the job done no matter what. So I think he's a very safe C option on the Friday night if you're looking to go, Andy Brayshaw into a Smith. I think that'll be pretty popular. We have seen some decent scores against Brisbane, in recent history with Jai Caldwell went 128, Nasai Wanganeen-Milera when he spent time in the midfield with a 131, Nick Dacos 131, and back to when the Geelong Cats played them earlier in the year with a 112 and a 119 for Max Holmes as well. So they have given up points in there, and they have not shown any inkling to do any tagging. So I don't think Bailey Smith cops too much attention in this game. So backing him at number 3 as potentially my captain option this week. Number 4, continuing on the Western Bulldogs trend, just really focusing on that matchup as much as possible, and that is Tim English. He falls in there at number 4. Now, there has been some major matchups against the Richmond Tigers ruckman in Nankervis. We've seen Royal Marshall go 123, with Tom De Koning go 132, Max Gorm at 138, and then Cherry went 155, sorry, and even Brodie Grundy last week went not last week, week 4, went 139. So this is right in Tim English's wheelhouse to go 120, if not 130 plus. So I think he's a very viable top 5 option if you are an owner there. So yep, he slots in there. He scored a 109 against them earlier. In the middle of last season. He hasn't played them so far this year, and I think they have got slightly easier than what they were last year as well. So expecting him to go fairly well. And number 5, similar line of thinking, is Bailey Dale. There's no doubt, I believe, that he's going to have a pretty big field day against them, up against that backline. That backline against Richmond is one of the juiciest matchups we have so far this season. He's had some massive form over the last 5 weeks where he's gone at, I think, 110. He should have another 130 in his game this week. Again, very unlikely to cop any attention. I just don't see any attention coming from the Richmond Tigers at all this week, and hasn't really been any attention so far this year. So really just targeting that matchup for the safest options here, and a good amount of ceiling for all of them. So could be a fairly big slapping from that game. I expect them to probably win by over 100 points realistically. So I think they have the firepower to do that. So really targeting that matchup there in my top 5. So that is my top 5. If you don't have a lot of these options, then my next 5 will probably suit you a little bit more. Where is he? Conor Rosie is my number 6. Now, he scored a 113 against Sydney last year. He's actually been averaging 116 at home so far this season, with only one score below 100, which was a Windhager tag in round 2 or 4, something like that, with an 84. So he definitely could be a lot higher at home, so he loves it at home at this stage, so he should go fairly well. And Sydney are one of the best matchups for midfielders recently, or even anywhere over the position, so I think Conor Rosie just gets done. The only question mark I have is, where is that James Jordan tag going? Whether they use him as that half forward flanker who tags the halfbacker, which would be Conor Rosie in this such situation, or does he go into the halfback and then tag a Jason Francis, or does he even go into the midfield and do a bit of attention on Zach Butters? It could go any which way, and could definitely be switched around mid-game as well. So that's why he sort of just falls out of my top 5, but he is a really valid option this week, and has been one of the safest captions you can have so far this season. Nearly averaging 110 is pretty amazing for what we paid for him at the start of the year. So yeah, he's definitely a viable option, and one I can see going 120 quite simply. Number 7 is the man I am bringing in this week in Luke Jackson. I did have some temptations to put him as the VC tonight against Essendon, who are debuting a first game of ruckman in Vizentini. I can't remember his first name at the stage. Here we go. No, I don't. I'm not even gonna try. Vizentini. So I could see Luke Jackson having a field day against him, having 40 plus hitouts, and then having five marks, five tackles around the ground, and then having 25 plus disposals. I just don't have the confidence that he has this ceiling that we're looking for. I think his highest score so far this year has been a 116, which he only had a couple weeks ago with against Wits, surprisingly, when he was doing that dual ruck with Darcy. So hasn't shown a huge ceiling. He's only averaging about 100 being the solo ruck over the last 2 seasons, which I think was 13 games. So really hasn't shown that much of a ceiling. So I'm just trying. I think I'm not super keen on it, but I think he could be a variable. He could have a pop game, right? I think this could be his breakout game where he just goes 120, 130 plus even. So it could be a very unique VC option if you want to go there tonight. I would not be surprised to see him go 150, to be honest. I just, the data isn't pushing me to go with it, even though I would love to do it. I just don't think I can at this moment. So here's number 7 for me, and a very good trading option, and a good captain option if you want to go there. Should be a safe 120 in my opinion. Number 8 is another big ruckman in Tristan Cherry, obviously one of the safest ruckmen in the league. He went 116 against Tom De Koning earlier this season with a big 11 tackles. So I think he's a very safe captain option again. Again, just probably not going to have that ceiling that we're looking for unless it's a super contested game there. But yeah, it's really hard to tell that. It's midday Saturday, so peak sun, who knows what's going to happen. So I think it's just a very viable captain option. If you're lacking a few options, you can just go here with him and just be safe with a 100 to 110 score, and he could pop a 130 at any given moment. I just don't think he's going to go below 90 at all. So he is there at number 8. Lockie Whitfield is at my number 9 spot. He's gone 108 and 145 in his last 2 matchups against Gold Coast. They were both last year. Gold Coast are the easiest matchup for midfielders at this stage, but defenders are a bit up and down. There has been some decent scores from halfbackers recently, but not amazing ones. I think a couple 120s, but no super ceiling scores. So again, he probably falls into that category where I think he's a very safe sort of 100 to 110, if not 120 player that you can throw the VC on throw the C on at a later stage this round, but probably not going to have that ceiling score that we're sort of expecting. He looks like he's settled in that back line again, taking a lot more kick-ins, so definitely the role that we're looking for. So yeah, another great option that you could look at. And finally, I had Max Holmes in at number 10, wherever he is down here. Just looking at this spread, you can tell how spread the captains are this week. There's so many different options, but just continue on. Max Holmes, for the same reasons as Bailey Smith, his form over the last month has been unreal. The matchup probably isn't amazing, but he's been averaging 111 at home, so expecting a similar 110 sort of score against the Brisbane Lions here at home. So yeah, he's another one. But just going through so that is my top 10 overall. So hopefully you've got some of those ones, and please tell me what you're looking to do with your VCs and Cs this week. I am probably going to be doing Andy Brayshaw tonight against Essendon as my VC, and then probably rolling into Bailey Smith tomorrow as a pretty safe House's 120 score, hopefully. So we'll see how we go. Hopefully Brayshaw gets done tonight with a 130. If I had to pick a line this week, I think it is a bit lower. I'll be happy with a 115 to a 120, I think. Try and shoot for 120, but I'll see. If I get a 118, then I'll probably just take it at the end of the day. I don't think there's any clear-cut option that's going to go absolutely massive. So the line is a little bit lower this week, unfortunately. But I'm still expecting a very decent score overall through this round. So that is my top 10. Just looking through a couple other options that I just left off my list. Nick Dacos, I'm expecting a pretty bad Windhager tag this week. Obviously, we saw what happened with Bontempelli last week. So, yeah, expecting it to go to Dacos. And it's probably going to be an 80 score from him. He loves to go from either this sub-80 score to a 120, 130, 120. So, it's either going to be one or the other. But I expect him to get a bit of a tag. So, he's not featured in my top 10. And like I said in my trades mode video, is I'd be avoiding him this week and looking to bring him in next week. If you don't have him currently and you're looking to trade him in. Nick Martin just missed out on my top 10. I do think he's a viable VC option tonight, but I think Brayshaw just is the much better option this week. And Freo are a bit of a tougher matchup, or a very neutral matchup for these sort of players. So I'm just not super convinced that he's going to be able to have the freedom, especially at Optus. Freo are a bit more competitive at Optus, so it's a bit more of a hostile environment. I'm not sure if Martin's going to get the luxury to do anything out there. So he's just missed out. Matthew Kennedy, definitely, it was someone that I definitely considered in my top 10, but at the end of the day, I had to go, are you really going to trust a Matthew Kennedy with your captaincy? And ultimately, I went, no, I wouldn't feel comfortable going with it, even though it's a great matchup and he's been amazing over the last 8 weeks. At the end of the day, I'm probably more trusting with a Bontempelli in a Tim English and even a Dale over him, just having a bit more flexibility and not being so reliant on the role. Same with Ed Richards, he could definitely go massive as well, but just maybe the ceiling just isn't quite there for both of them. I know Kennedy went 132 a couple of weeks ago, but besides that, it's all been this stable 110s for majority of the time. Same with Ed Richards, he's very up and down from 90s to 120s, so probably not quite the ceiling that we're looking for. Not touching Caleb Sarong this week for all the reasons that I mentioned. He could get a bit of attention, but again, it is the matchup, so I could see him going quite well. So we'll see how it goes. Zach Merritt, for all the form reasons, just not the one I'm even considering at the moment until I see that role change or have him as a permanent halfbacker. Probably not interested too much if he's this half forward sort of dude. Nasai against Collingwood, just no. Collingwood are a super tough matchup, so I'm just not even considering that at the moment. Sam Darcy, definitely probably should have featured in my top 10, even if in my top 5. I could easily see him having a 150 score here with, kicking 7 or 8 goals in a very good matchup. So expecting him to have a field day out and someone that I probably could even throw in at my option. But realistically, I don't think too many people are trading him in. So is it really fantasy relevant for us? Who knows? I can see a few people doing it, but yeah, definitely a viable option if you want to. He is the last game of the round though, so it's not someone you can throw a VC on. It's someone you have to trust to see on. So it is a bit sketchy there. And if he does cop a bit of an injury, then it would be it could be season ending realistically. So be careful. But yeah, all power to you if you're doing it. Brodie Grundy with his form, I wouldn't stop you if you were going to do him as your captaincy this week. His form has been unreal. Off the bye, does it change anything personal coming in? I'm not sure, but the matchup is certainly there. Number one matchup for Ruckman, so he's definitely one that if you're trading into this week, you might as well throw the C on him, back him in to go that massive score. Besides that, Harry Sheezel, I'm not touching his Carlton, and that's pretty much about it. We're getting into some really unique territory. Josh Dunkley will definitely be a very unique option if you're going there. Josh Dacos, I don't think you're trusting him with the C or the VC. Realistically, I don't think he has quite the ceiling that we're looking for from others. And same with Tom Green. Up against the likes of the Gold Coast Suns, his consistency just hasn't been there this year, so I don't think you're looking at him either. So that is my captains this week. Hopefully you all go well. Let me know what you're doing down below, and yeah, if you have any questions, drop them down below. But besides that, have a great weekend, guys, and I'll see you for next week's review and heading into next week. Take it easy, guys. Bye.